Hey, hi everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of the 𝗪𝗂𝗱 podcast, Thorny, Truce. And today we have Bundin and Fwoot.
Hi.
Hello.
All right, and Bundin's going to start us off.
Okay, so this episode basically picks up right where episode 25 ends off, with Lauren being pulled into an alley, and we see that it was Kieran who pulled her into the alley, has his hand over her mouth and is holding her hand, but her other hand is on her gun, on her holster. So even though he's restraining her right now, she's not helpless in this situation. And it just shows her quick reaction time and stuff. So like, if that was, say, someone that she didn't know, or like someone who's trying to attack her, they would probably be on the floor right now.
Yep.
So Kieran says, "Hi there, darling. It's been a while. I hope you missed me." And you're gonna freak out, Mindy, because I know you're gonna be like, "And he wasn't lying."
No, I think he's being sarcastic, and I don't think that, the sarcasm is marked in red, but it's his personality is so funny. I love it. It's just charming. Like he's capable of taking the most, and in any situation, whether it's tense, whether it's angry. I mean, there's times when he's angry when he doesn't do this, but he's so suave and flippant, and he's funny. He's very amusing. So no, not even in a simping way. It's just, very an endearing personality.
So yeah, but Lauren's having none of that. She immediately pushes him off and pulls off her mask and says, "What do you want?" And Kieran looks at her and says, "Our little break gave me a lot of time to reconsider. Should I just get rid of you, or do I bother to ask why you went berserk on me?" And then she says, "And what did you decide?" as she's tucking her mask away in her jacket. And he says, well, obviously you're still alive. So my curiosity seems to have gotten the upper hand this time. After all, we made a pact to not kill each other, and luckily for you, I am a man of my word.
I found it interesting that, he does lead off with his sarcasm, but he immediately gets serious, and it's rare to see Kieran serious. He's always joking, but here he's communicating, like he's actually telling her what he's really thinking. And I find that rare and refreshing.
Yeah, no, like even the way that he was like, "Hello, darling," he didn't have a smirk on his face or anything. He was completely serious about this, because she really did endanger them when they were at the Golden Clover. And like you said, he's been thinking about this for the past few days, like what caused her to go off like that. And he's just more curious than anything to know. And one of the things as well, he says that he's a man of his word, and we've seen before that he tends to keep his word for whenever he makes promises. So interesting look at his character.
Yeah, and I think he recognizes that if Lauren went crazy like that, there must have been a good reason. Like he understands that to get rid of her, like even if he would consider not keeping his promise, he understands that there must be a reason, and he wants to be fair and give her a chance to explain herself.
So
yeah.
then,
sorry. He's much more calmer this time compared to last time, which definitely gives the sign that he did spend time on this, as you guys are saying. But I think something interesting is also how Lauren immediately pushes him off. And I know, like, it's just instinctive, but it reminds me of what happened in episode 23, and that's some good continuity.
I mean, she's a very strong-minded person. She's not going to let anybody manhandle her.
Yeah, no, she will not tolerate that at all. So then he continues, "So, officer, what the hell did you see in Angelo's notebook?" And then she says, "That's none of your concern," as she's turning the safety off of her gun.
I was wondering what she was doing. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I figured she's doing, because probably is just doing that. Not only is it just actively to show, like, I think it's mainly to show, come near me, do anything, and you will get shot, because she's never actually turned off the safety in front of him. She just kind of holds the gun to his head. We don't know if the safety is on or not, but she's basically showing him, don't try it. Like, you will not get away with attacking me.
Feels because she's not forthcoming with information, so she anticipates that he'll get upset.
That too. So then it cuts to him giving her an intense look, and then we see him pull a knife out of his shirt, I suppose, and then he grabs her arm, and then she at the same time is pulling her gun up, and he's also pulling his knife up, and we get this really great vertical panel of the two of them holding each other's weapons to their heads. So she's got her gun to his head, he's got his knife to her neck, and they're in a stalemate, basically. It's so well drawn.
It's one of my favorite panels, like in all of PH. The art in this episode, some of the best in the entire series. It's just consistently good, like all the time, everywhere, for this entire arc.
I'll be honest, when I saw them both like draw their weapons, I was like, y'all are such drama queens. Like, you know, you're not going to hurt each other, and you know you're basically equally matched, so nobody's going to win. You may as well just keep talking without, you know, having a deathly weapon an inch in front of your face. But it suits their characters because Kieran's dramatic and Lauren's overreactive, so it does suit their characters. I was like, you could have just kept talking, you know.
But no, they are very similar people too, and I think this also shows another parallel between them because they both have the same reaction to this interaction, and I like the visual storytelling in that, like, they don't tell you that they're similar, we see it and we can do that, which also, like Fwoot said, the art in this episode really helps because the facial expressions, the angles, the lighting, everything works to help convey the emotion and intensity of this scene and the scenes that follow this, and I just love it. It is chef's kiss. So we see Kieran looking cool as a cucumber, even though he's got this gun to his head, but it is like the 6th time he's had that gun to his head probably in the past few weeks, so he's used to it at this point. But then he says with complete seriousness, and like one of the most serious expressions we've ever seen him have, he says, "Yes, it is my damn business. We're partners, and this is pertinent to the investigation. There are things I have to know before you blow it again during an interrogation." And then Lauren, also looking cool as a cucumber with the knife to her throat, says, "There are lots of things we don't know about each other, but we made a deal. No personal questions." And then it cuts back to Kieran, and he says, "This is not a personal question. This is about the evidence I found during our mission." "It is personal," Lauren says. "I looked through it and nothing was relevant to the case." So this is one of the things I think we talked about when they were making the deal, when we did the episode 10 podcast. It's like, no personal questions, but they have to share all information. And we know with both of them, it's personal for them what's going on and why they're tracking down the leader and all of this stuff. So there's gonna obviously be things that are personal to them, but are also related to the investigation. So it's not shocking that we got to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible. There was no way, because like their whole mission, right, is intertwined. They want to take down the leader and they both have personal reasons. So like there's just absolutely no way they could have avoided personal questions. Lauren's totally fooling herself. Of course, this is not related. Of course it's related.
And
yeah,
unlike Kieran, Lauren isn't in the Phantom Scythe. There's still a lot of mystery around what has happened to her that she wants to figure out too, and that is personal. So when she comes across stuff like that, she's more likely to find a mystery surrounding what's happened to her with her past than Kieran.
Yeah, and then there's also there's also the fact that, like Kieran said, he is just curious as well, because they've made this deal and stuff, but he already like dug into her past because he was curious about her. So obviously her completely losing her cool when she is displayed to him that she is a rational thinker and is able to be level-headed in a high intensity situation. I think he's a bit intrigued as well, but the main thing is him just making sure that she doesn't blow it again. but I think there is a level of genuine curiosity about her and what she saw underneath that as well.
Yeah, I think because, like you said, he sees she is normally rational, and I think he respects her. So he's like, what could happen? What could be so bad to make her lose it like that?
Mm-hmm. So then we cut to Kieran again, and I love again how this panel is drawn with the barrel of the gun like tapering and like pointing at him. Really good at directing the eye and all that. I love angles and how art is like how the scene is made to allow you to process it basically, and it makes for an interesting visuals. And he says, we may have a rule against killing each other, but nobody said anything about harming.
Typical. So typical.
So I think Lauren basically just realizes this isn't going nowhere, and in order for him to just stop and to get out of them just being, yes it is, no it isn't, yes it is, no it isn't, takes a deep breath, lets it out, looks him in the eye and says, before I was transferred to the patrol unit, I was a detective. I worked on a case a year ago which got me kicked off the investigation unit. That's it. And then Kieran says, like, that's the most bare bones way that you can say it. She's given nothing away. It's just interesting. She's like, that's it? Bull crap. That's not enough to make someone like you lose it like that, which, like we said, someone like her, he knows that she's completely rational usually. So it had to be something big to get her all worked up. And then he says, there was something more to it, wasn't there?
I love her expression, because Lauren seems so resentful that he can read her. You know, Lauren's used to doing everything on her own and not allowing other people to share her burden. So, you know, there's a part of it that she's upset, like, you know, I want to do this by myself. She doesn't have an easy time sharing with other people. So she's resentful that he can read that through that, and she won't be able to, she'll have to open up.
Yeah, no, and oh, sorry, you go. Oh, was I the only one talking there? My internet's being dumb today. But yeah, the faces in this episode are just so good.
And in this panel specifically, again, about the art, honestly, I'm feeling brain dead today, so all I can think about is the art. But we don't, after like this episode and maybe episode 27, we never really see this art style, and episode 25, I guess, we never really see this art style come back, and so it's kind of fascinating. Like, so slightly changed it up on how she drew the characters. Like, the lines are a bit scratchier and the lighting is a bit brighter on especially the highlights, and the eyes are bigger while the nose and mouth are smaller, and the face are just generally wider. It is one of my favorite phases in the PH art evolution.
Agreed. I know that she changed the way that she not rendered, or maybe the way that she did shadowing and highlights and stuff. I'm not an artist, far less a digital artist, so I can't say what she did, but I know she changed her process for how she did approach shadows and lighting and highlights and rendering, I think, a little bit. But I think that's a bit later. I think that's around 32 or 33, I think, is one of the last episodes that she used her old technique with. But I might be wrong with that, but I think I remember hearing something about how she changed up how she did that. So this could be just a byproduct of that. But yeah, I agree. This is what, like, these two episodes are some of my favorites, and the art is in a big reason why.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
For a
it's
brief
beautiful.
period a couple months ago, 68 and 27, or not 68, oh my god, 28, but 26 and 27 were my favorite episodes just because of the art.
But yeah, so we cut back to Lauren looking at him. I love also the snow, kind of out of focus, the way the backgrounds are. It's just so great. She begins to say something like H, so huh, but then she cuts herself off We see her lips kind of tremble, like if she's trying to hold it back or just like decided not to say anything. She pulls her gun down and then looks down to the floor. And then we cut to the flashback of this guy with this huge scar on his face and a blind eye. And we see that he's saying something and we can't see what he's saying, but the text is red and blurred. So we know that whatever he's saying, he's lying about. And then we also see what looks like the front of that picture that Lauren found in Anslow's stuff, which was the thing that made her go crazy. And we do know that this guy was in that picture as well. So something there.
Yeah.
So then she looks back at Kieran and says,
we just talk a little bit about how Lauren looks before when she starts saying something. It's so beautifully expressed, because you see like she starts to say it, but she has such a hard time. She even has to like stop before she can regain composure and start talking again. And she, that letting the gun down and slumping down against the wall. I mean, she doesn't usually show weakness, like emotional vulnerability like that, but she is sad. This is clearly like a very emotional memory for her. And it's so evident from her body language.
It's a big revelation. So she looks back at Kieran and says, "You asked me and I told you. I saw a picture I didn't expect him to have and it took me by surprise. That's all you need to know. I lost my grip and put us in danger because of it. I know. I'm sorry." And then Kieran just looks at her with a very similar look to how he looked at her after he got them out of the Golden Clover. And that was the first time we saw him genuinely angry. He doesn't necessarily look angry this time, but he's more like scrutinizing her, trying to see if she's being truthful or not. And he knows that she's not telling him everything, and he knows that she's holding things back from him, but she's given enough information that he probably thinks that it's not worth it to get it now, or probably would take too long, and he's just trying to see if he can get anything else from her, probably. It's just intense. I love how Soph does those lines around the eyes that they look kind of like pen, like if she was just drawing with like a really inky pen. And I love that style. It just shows so much expression.
Yeah, I've done a few pencil drawings, sketches of the purple hyacinth stuff, and so I've learned like the eyes. There's always like a ton of lines under the eyes, and their eyelashes, right? Which presumably is eyelashes. They have like super long eyelashes spreading all over, and then the top like looks like eyeliner, right? Everyone has like very distinct, not really eyeliner, but it looks like, because it's like a lot of thick lines on top. Anywho, but yeah. When you start drawing it, you realize. But yeah, but it's nice that Lauren acknowledges and takes responsibility for what she did. She does admit that she put them in danger. I mean, it was pretty bad. So it's good that she's able to take responsibility.
Yeah, no, one of the things that you need to do when you know you mess up, is you need to apologize and be genuine about the apology. But she knows that she doesn't have to tell him everything, or she doesn't want to tell him everything right now because it's too personal. But even so, she can own up to the fact that she put them in danger, and if he didn't get them out in time, they would have been caught. So
yeah, that would have been terrible. You can just imagine what would happen. It would be like the worst.
He would have broken out, and then she would have just been there, and he would have been like, bye. Yeah. Or he might have killed her then too. You never know, like busted out, gotten rid of her so that she couldn't say anything, dipped.
Well, he chose to drag her out instead, so clearly he wants to keep her as a partner.
She's more useful to him alive than dead. And I think that they think that, like, that's the same thing that they think of each other, honestly. They've got more information working together than not, so.
Yep.
Okay, but then Lauren says, "You don't need to worry about Anslow. He doesn't remember. The knock to the head you gave him made sure of that." So, but then Kieran cuts her off, gets up in her space and holds the knife up to her chin again and says, "Fine, you've got guts, and I like that. Only fools have ever dared to challenge me." but next time things go to hell because of you, I'm letting you burn. And he says
Ooh.
that like, boom.
Ooh.
You're just there like swooning.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of talked about this before, but I don't know if everyone has this, but I think many people like strength of character. I talked about it actually in a little bit in a much later episode, but when people display strength of character, it's admirable. It's something a lot of people are drawn to and attracted to. So, and that's what he likes about her. He's literally just telling her that's what he likes about her right now. And he's displaying that as well. I find it very interesting, and because he's not at the point where, when people are close and when they get close, their emotions overpower their reason, right? And so like if Kieran and Lauren were already close and having a stronger emotional relationship, he would let something like that slide because of his personal feelings, because he likes her, right? Just like we let things slide for our friends, and in this story, people do let things slide because they know someone, they're close to them. But Lauren and Kieran are not at that stage yet. So the fact that he is saying, okay, we'll proceed and I'll let it go, it's coming from a much more of a stance of like respect, and like you said, knowing that they can be more useful to each other than not. But yeah, and it's interesting to see, like he's made an evaluation, like a logical evaluation of like, okay, what is the most cumulatively beneficial step to do, continue with her or not continue with her, and then he decides, okay, it's better to continue. So I find that it's just interesting to see his thought process.
Mm-hmm. Also the fact that he genuinely like compliments her, because he didn't lie when he said that he likes the fact that she has guts. Like that's probably one of the reasons why he partnered with her in the first place, because nobody's ever like cornered him like that before, back when she first caught him in that alley back in episode 2, and nobody's ever matched him, I guess, on that kind of level of both being proficient at what they do but also passionate and having an agenda that synchronizes with his own. So
yeah,
he thinks she's interesting, at least. And the fact that he says, but the next time things go to hell because of you, I'm letting you burn, he's just being clear, like, don't lose it again, otherwise I'm not going to be there to drag you out.
And that's also necessary. There's at least in the Jewish culture I grew up, there's a kind of like a trichotomy that's presented in terms of character traits, where there's people who are very merciful and who are very soft, and then there's people who are very harsh and tough and rigid, and then there's like the perfect combination is like people who can combine both. So if he would have let it slide, like that would have been too much softness, and that wouldn't have been appropriate, to say, just to like be like not even address it. That would have been damaging and destructive and potentially let things get worse in the future. So he's being, he's being tough, and he's taking the right steps he needs to address it and to make sure that it won't happen again, and that it won't be overlooked. But then he's also being, not being overly harsh and overly punitive like someone else might be. So it's a good balance.
It's like a warning, but also just like, if so long as we operate as normal, we'll be fine, but just heads up, don't do that again. So it's basically just letting her know where he stands. So then she says, what happened in the Golden Clover that night won't happen again. And then it's kind of a long break, and then we see some rooftops, and then Kim looks up and she's beginning to look around. She says, Lauren? So clearly Lauren's been away from the patrol for some time. Then it cuts back to a view of that alley, and then Kieran kind of has his mischievous look on his face again. So that kind of indicates to us that he's going back into his normal witty mode, and says, unlike you, I haven't wasted the past 3 days sulking. I've been investigating Beatrice Blakesley. We'll start to prep the file tonight and pay her a little visit this Thursday night. And then they turn their backs to each other, go their separate ways, and she's pulling her mask on. But as they're walking away from each other, Kieran says, you know what to do.
What does she have to do, by the way? Investigate her as well.
Like, yeah, it's just basically like roll up to the cave, we'll do everything. But I think it also means you know what to do. It's basically don't lose your shit again.
Yep.
Then we see Lauren catch up to Kim and grab her shoulder, and she gives Kim this overly happy expression while Kim gives her an overly quizzical expression. She's like,
Yeah, she's overcompensating.
But yeah, and then it transitions tonight, and I give it to you.
All right, so we now have a starry night. We see some houses. Looks like there's some, laundry hanging outside, porches, and then we have a newspaper, and it's the Le Journal, and it says it's December 5th, blank blank 27. Team of justiciers, mosques helping the police, ally or foe, and it's actually a picture of the courtroom that we talked about with 𝗪𝗏. It's when March, I think, was envisioning that he would get sentenced. And just noticed the tagline is "We lead, others follow." And now we see two figures in a window of a home, and clearly it's obviously our favorite vigilantes. And there's this woman elegantly dressed. She is tied up. She has blindfold over her eyes, and Lauren and Kieran are there. And Kieran says, "Again, my dear lady, my deepest apologies for disturbing you at such a late hour. You may return to your slumber if you wish, or simply wait for the police to arrive. They should be here any minute." So also, we don't get a sense of what happened before, right? Presumably there was an interrogation. This one, we don't really get the first-hand view for this.
But we also don't really need it because we've already had 2 interrogations so far. And one of the things that's that can get tiring when you're trying to tell a story like this is just repeating the same thing over and over, because we can infer that it's going to be kind of similar. The kind of scare the person with Lauren's ability, more bad sign language, stuff like that. So it really would kind of drag because it's not something we haven't seen already, So I like the decision of just cutting right to the end of it. Mm-hmm. So I think that was like, we didn't need that, and it would just add like extra stuff that we don't need. So cutting right to the fun stuff is great in my opinion.
Yeah, right. In any art or in any life, you have to know when to add and when to take away. You can't have too much is not good. Mm-hmm. So yeah, completely agree. So now they are disturbed. We have a clack, and we have somebody's kicking the door open, and we have 3 ninja-like people. There's also a suit of armor standing in the hallway, by the way. I think that's what it is.
There could be more
people with their
weapons.
So they come in, they're like, "Milady," and Blakesley says, "You're late. You really thought I wouldn't take precautions, loon? After seeing my associates drop like flies in the past few days, Alonso is an idiot, but I didn't get this far by being careless." Like, "Oh, good job, Blakesley." And they're like, "Time to go." Lauren and Kieran yeet themselves out the window. The ninjas, follow suit. Blakesley's like, "Get them." And then she's all alone, and she's in like cartoon form, and she's like, "Fool, come back! You were supposed to untie me."
Gotta love the humor, just kind of sprinkled in.
Yeah, and that's the greatness, right? You go between action and humor. Like it's just great. And we have the 4 figures. They're running away on the roof. Lauren and Kieran are doing their ninja thing as well. They're jumping, and hardcore. Swordsman number 1 is slashing at Kieran, and he's drawing his sword. They're sword fighting. It's very dramatic.
Kind of chaotic.
Yeah. Meanwhile, and now Lauren sees, like, from the back of her eye, she's looking back at Kieran's sword fighting, and I kind of get the impression that she's like concerned about him, and she doesn't want to continue until she knows that he can follow. Which, of course, really, she should be thinking about herself, because instantly somebody, throws a dagger in her direction. She has to dodge it. And then the guy that's running after it, she grabs his wrist, bangs on his back, starts fighting with him. And now this is a great scene. Oh my gosh, I've helped use this as the cover. They're back to back. And she has her gun, he has his sword. Oh, and they have this circle of like ninjas around him. It's such a great image where they're
the Mr. and Mrs. Smith of it all.
Yes, I never saw that movie, but I know the clip, the image or whatever. This is great. Oh, I love it. United against people who are going to
we love a battle couple.
And they look so badass. They just do. Sorry, excuse me, language. You know, with their hoods popped up and their hats, and you can't see their faces.
It's very noir kind of looking, but also kind of like action movie. It's just good.
And then Kieran just continues with his, you know, total sarcasm. He's like, how timely. Just when I thought I was going to miss my training regimen, these dummies are godsend.
Then chaos.
Yep. There's like 2 of them and 4 of them, right? Clang, clang, there's fighting. She's kicking one, Lauren kicks one's feet out from under him. She does that actually to, I think, multiple people. She kicks somebody in the head. And, you know, Kieran's fighting with a guy literally on top of the roof. Lauren's fighting with someone else. There's lots of action, guns, just more and more arm twisting. And now Lauren slips on a tile. Some of the roof tiles slip beneath her feet. She panics and she slides down, and she's kind of like hanging on from the edge of the roof. And this guy has a sword. At this point, she's really hanging on from the edge. And there's this great panel. He's looming over her and his sword is up. The moon is behind him. He's about to strike. And Lauren is, you know, you just see her face. It's like, it feels like it's the frozen in time moment. I think I've asked this once, if any of you had a time where time froze for you because you were in like a very scary situation?
Yeah, that happened to me. Happens to me a few times, but usually it's when something happens and I'm like panic for like a second, and you know, when you realize something or you see something or you hear some news or something and you're just like, and you just kind of freeze for a second, you don't move, you don't do anything. So yeah, I can't think of any specific instances of that off the top of my head, but it has happened to me.
Yeah.
Bundin, we probably suppressed it from the trauma.
So I had 2 times where I never understood the expression time stood still and like everything goes quiet until I had it happen. It was both when I was like a young teenager. One time was when I was falling down and there were a bunch of rocks. I was falling onto rocks basically. And I remember I was falling and I looked down and I was like, okay, if I fall and I hit my head, I'm going to be dead. And it was like, it was ground level. It wasn't like a high fall, but anyway, there was that. And then there was another time where I was biking and my bike tripped over something. I was flipping over with my bike. And both of those times, I was like, it was a totally different way of experiencing time. Time stood still. I knew it was a matter of seconds, but it felt like forever. And everything went quiet and I couldn't hear anything. It was just very, very slow. It was fascinating. So I feel like that expression that Lauren has, you know, with like, because you're in a life and death situation, I feel like that's the frozen expression she has, where like she's experiencing everything very slowly. So
I actually just realized that story I was telling you before we started, because the next episode that comes, it happened on a really crazy night for me. Walking with my friends by some apartment buildings to get back to my apartment in college, and someone dropped a wine bottle from about 4 stories and it nearly fell on my head. But I just remember hearing it shatter, and like no glass hit me, thank God, but it was just shattered between me and this other guy who was walking. I just remember like stopping and looking down and be like, my brain being like, if I was just maybe a foot to the left, that would have hit me in the head. And it's kept like, wow. Yeah, crazy night. But it made me remember that Purple Hyacinth episode that came out, but that's 27. But yeah. So you just kind of processing a million things at once, and it just makes everything seem like it's not happening and still, but then when you get back to normal, you're just like, did that just really happen? But yeah.
Whew. Yeah, so Lauren is seeing her life flash before her eyes, basically. The sword is, you know, descending. It's a beautiful image. It's like that light splitting her face. It's gorgeous. But
yeah, it could be the sword, or it could just be the sheen from the sword, but it just,
I think it's the sheen, but
yeah,
it's gorgeous. And but then against the black backdrop, you see slash and you see red, and that's the end. So, but in a matter of minutes, we will be discussing what happens.
Yeah, back-to-back episodes.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Wait,